I have gone all the way from Levittown, Long Island, which is a peculiar town in the history of our country in and of itself, and peculiar programs in the greater Long Island area. I've also had experiences in Antarctica. I spent a year straight at the South Pole Station. I learned that there are technologies on this planet that are pretty much really beyond most people's comprehension, and I'm trying to bring them into the fold. The South Pole Station is like this wild mind control / intergalactic communications system that is not being wielded by nice folks. And we, the people of the planet, need to know something and do something about this. Nobody wants to hear me when I say, like, hey, have you really truly considered that the decisions that you've been making in the past few years have been manipulated by some sort of outside technology?
Last month, inflation accelerated to 8.6%. Hello. I mean, I know a lot of us have been talking about it, but it's crazy how expensive gas is, how expensive food is. I spent $8.50 the other day for a gallon of milk. It is organic, but $8.50. I wanted to show you some statistics real quick because I'm glad that I got into gold and silver when I did. For those of you that have been following me on Leak Project, I'm a big fan of gold, silver, and precious metals, and I'm a huge fan of Noble Gold Investments. Average gas prices, we are at an all-time high nationally, and over $5 a gallon for unleaded gasoline. Now, what about diesel fuel? Look at diesel fuel prices. In California, $6.85. Be smart. Protect your assets with gold and silver. I did. Convert into gold, silver, precious metals. You will be gifted American Virtue solid silver coin. Give them a call fast. Supplies are limited. 1-877-646-5347 today.
I was there before Buzz Aldrin.
Nice.
Yeah, and they actually had to meta evac him too, so I got that going for me as well. But I think it's extremely weird that the leaders of the world go down there. I really do. I think that is beyond extreme. These are elite people that are put in cushy ivory towers their whole life. John Warner III, who was previously the Secretary of Defense, passed away within the last year. Prior to him passing away, he stated to his son that the United States Submarine Service was actively involved with secret facilities underneath the ice in Antarctica, that there were steam boring tunnels and the such, and that this facility, or these facilities, I should say, were used for space operations. What he was quoted as saying.
Any sort of like hidden, suppressed archaeology digs or activities and stuff around there from what you've sensed or heard?
Well, we were tasked with blowing up the old pole in my summer season 2010.
To those small creeks and rivers so that you can get 240 watts out of them.
Well, that sounds cool. I'll take all the watts I can get. Also, I mean, it's pretty nice knowing that if things got hectic and for some reason the water supply was limited, or, they were rationing water, or they shut it off. Well, where I'm at, man, I'm ready to roll. So this is like off the grid, but still on the grid. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say today. And so, folks, this is a pleasant surprise. I've got Eric Hecker with us and Bernie, the Mad Alchemist. He's really happy, and it's weekend at Bernie's. And so also,
yes,
Eric, I don't know. I'm looking forward to hearing what you're going to bring to the table, man, because every time we talk, you're like next level. And, I've heard a lot of stuff in Antarctica, but you seem to have such a wide spectrum of topics that we could discuss anything, and I'm sure you'd be able to keep up. If not,
oh yeah, I'm game. I'm looking forward to it, Rex. Chomping at the bit. We've had this one on the back burner for a while, so I'm happy to join in.
Well,
exactly.
It's so great to have you guys, and I'm going to be kind of in the background here right now. So this is your show, And I'll be checking in every now and then. But thank you so much for what you guys do. Thank you for speaking here on the Leak Project Network, and keep being the change you guys want to see.
Thank you, Rex. Same with you, brother.
Absolutely.
So I've got a few different things to go over today with both the Medicine Hat geoglyphs. We'll do some pyramid talking and also go through your different experiences down in Antarctica and what you've made of it since. Good, Eric.
My name's Eric Hecker, and I'm currently living up in Anchorage, Alaska. I have my own website, deciphering.tv, where I'm trying to get into disclosure by sharing my experiences, what I've come across, and what I know to be true. So I have gone all the way from Levittown, Long Island, which is a peculiar town in the history of our country in and of itself, and peculiar programs in the greater Long Island area. I've also had experiences in Antarctica. I spent a year straight at the South Pole Station. I learned that there are technologies on this planet that are pretty much really beyond most people's comprehension, and I'm trying to bring them into the fold. I thought it was going to be a much easier mission, that the information that I had could be dropped on the table and everybody would digest it and go, oh, now we all know. But in reality, it seems like it's a lot more challenging to do that. So that's basically where I am at in the state of disclosure, is just trying to really, I guess, repump the information that I've presented previously, that the South Pole Station is like this wild mind control / intergalactic communications system that is not being wielded by nice folks. And we, the people of the planet, need to know something and do something about this, because we're currently suffering really badly under technologies that people don't even know exist. And that's the part that's going to, it's really hard cognitive dissonance, because nobody wants to hear me when I say, like, hey, have you really truly considered that the decisions that you've been making in the past few years have been manipulated by some sort of outside technology? Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to believe it. Nobody wants to give any credence to it, because the responsibility to that understanding means that everybody needs to really get off their butts fast and furiously and get their lives back, take control of everything. Like this is where I say, like, know thyself is so important, because there's technologies that are intruding on that. And if people don't pay attention, they're never going to know. So that's kind of where I'm trying to be the crack in the dam of this concrete veil of secrecy on these technologies that they're up and running.
Right. And so Mark Twain's famous quote of "it's easier to lie to people than convince them that they've been lied to." And I feel you on that, brother. And it's such a noble cause. So I will let you continue on with some of what you've discovered while you were down there and your research since.
I got to jump in real quick. I want to jump in because I'm hearing you talk about this, Eric, and I'm fascinated with the mind control technologies. And I've been studying it now for about 15 years. And there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation about HARP technologies. What I do know is, though, many years ago, back in 2013, I went to Alaska. Before I flew out to Alaska, I used to go on these forums all the time on Godlike Productions that have video chat where people could just, shoot the shit. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go check out HARP when I go to Alaska. And dude, we got followed by homeless guys. They looked homeless. Obviously they weren't, but they were dressed like they were homeless. We got followed by those dudes when we left Anchorage. And I think that they were following us to see if we were actually going to go to HARP. So I can't even imagine the technologies they're going to have out there in on the South Pole. It could be even more powerful than HARP, especially considering the location. But, we talked before when you brought up the possibility that it was a communication device, like interstellar communication device. And I think it'd be a great to kind of get people up to par with that if they missed that show. That's incredible.
Yeah. First and foremost, Rex, I can back up your experience with going up over to Harp. I've been there twice myself. It's just a drive for me as a resident. It's a long drive, but it's just a drive. I've done it twice and investigated the area. And both times that I was in the area looking around, I felt like there were eyes on me. There were folks that made contact with me that had, oh, I'm retired DOD and blah, blah, blah. Okay, 10-4, and you just happen to be in the middle of nowhere right next to me in the middle of nowhere?
That's kind of bizarre.
Yeah, it's,
What a coincidence.
Yeah, right. I mean, in and of itself, it doesn't prove anything. But boy, it's certainly peculiar when it's happening.
Do they still follow you around, man? Do you have a lot of weird stuff happen out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I had an extremely weird interaction today driving. I was at a red light. I was at a red light, and all of a sudden the dude behind me starts honking. And I'm going, this is interesting. The light's not green. Like, what's this guy rushing me for? This is peculiar. Someone's trying to get a rise out of me, I figured. All of a sudden, the dude just exits his vehicle, starts coming up towards me. The light turns green now. All the vehicles in front of me go. All the cars on the side go. Everyone's leaving this intersection. And the guy starts saying to me, he goes, hey, when are you going to sell that van? I said, never. He goes, well, how many miles to the gallon do you get? And I said, plenty. And he starts asking me, I said, sorry, I have to go. The light's green. And I just drove away.
After honking at you nonetheless, eh?
Yeah, I mean, this guy's just interested in my van out of nowhere. This was also, I was exiting my home and had just turned the GPS tracker off on my phone.
Okay, so you turn your GPS tracker off, and that's when that happens. That's weird.
It was within 3 minutes of that.
See, because before it didn't sound that weird. Before it just sounded like some agitated dude that was like, maybe he wanted to buy your van, or maybe he didn't. Maybe he wanted to punch you in the face. Who knows? But now that you're saying the GPS got turned off, and then that happens, that adds a whole layer of spook right there.
There are layers, yeah.
And then that he was honking while the light was red, but then tries to engage you once it's green. That's even more strange.
And as if my van is so highly desirable that, a contact in traffic is required.
They wanted to see if anybody was with you, what you're doing, maybe.
Oh, there's a high probability it was just a contact. Yeah, just a quick peek.
Like, look in there. Oh, he's okay. Yeah. He's not
that him right
now.
Yeah, and it's, there's weird contacts that happen in other circumstances. Lots of folks don't know that vehicles listed for utilities, like the power company, the cable company, and stuff like that. Lots of times those vehicles are like cops or feds or something. The agencies have deals where they have certain aspects of the fleet that are already set aside. They're just put in a different parking lot corner, and they're for the feds to use. And they can just dip into any one of these cars, and next thing you know, you think it's the cable guy that you're talking to, but it's really a fed that's trying to get info from you that you're willing to give away because you see the car in the uniform, so you presume.
Hey, it's the cable guy. Let's talk to him.
Yeah, cable guy's walking up and down the block with a scanner thingy and just makes contact and gets info, and you give up free info.
And in Alaska, that's the peculiar part.
Oh well, yeah. There's a lot of another thing up here too is the percentage of the population that basically was federal on, like, a lot of the population here is just endeared to the federal government.
I mean, they're working for the feds in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, or a pension from.
Yeah, that will sway the loyalty for sure, right?
Heck yeah.
So a little bit more about the mind control aspects, because there's been so much classified research out of the South Pole over the years, and that they're able to essentially magnify, amplify different waves through the pole. I remember that there was a study in the 60s or something about the South Pole possibly having these vortexes over top of them, speculation that there's an inner Earth access down there. Can you give us any sort of insight of anything along those lines you experienced while down there, Eric?
I didn't really experience anything in that capacity about the energies. Well, I guess I guess that's really accurate. I did experience the energies of the South Pole. I saw some of the coolest aurora australis possible. So that's the energies of the South Pole in full effect, actually. So that's actually one of the things I consider. Like you are more of a scientist in this direction and do more practical studies and things, right? I believe that there actually has to be some, I don't know, something measurable from someone who's been at the South Pole. I mean, like, there's different energies on this planet. There's the North Pole and there's the South Pole. And there's a magnetosphere. And most people are at certain positions on the planet for certain periods of time. And I equate that to like going to a different community and drinking of their well, would be like partaking of the energy of that area.
I like what you're saying with that, and especially with the amount of instruments that NASA has down there of measuring these different electromagnetic waves and energies and stuff like that. And that would specifically tie into mind control, like the influence of it and that technology of these EM waves. So absolutely, anything that experience that you have from down there that you might not have thought of at that time, but that could reflect onto as something that might have been different from, for instance, how you feel in Alaska, which is close to the North Pole, or when you were living in the continental US, in like the Central Range, I guess.
Ooh, that's challenging to say anything similar because South Pole was so extremely different. It's the lack of everything, and I don't know that people can really imagine that nowadays because they have so much at their fingertips. I mean, it's a year of nothing. I mean, literally take away everything that you enjoy doing and remove it. Basically, like, and then like lock yourself in the room, throw away the key, and make it 100 below 0 degrees outside for 1,000 miles in every direction. I mean, there wasn't anything else quite similar to that per se. But in regards to the mind control stuff and the experience and what I think about differently from then until now is I do believe that our winter site manager, and this is all referenceable on the news if anybody wants to pull stuff up, my winter site manager contacted, her name was Renee Nicole Dusseur, and she contacted the news. She was trying to get medically evacuated in the middle of our winter season, which is not possible. She, I believe, suffered something. I believe she believes she suffered something. And she tried to figure out what it was and thought she had a stroke. So she was hurt. I get that. When somebody's hurt and they're scared, they do what they can to try to save themselves. So she was trying to get medically evac'd in a circumstance where it wasn't happening. It made all of the news. South Pole scientist tries, to need help. It was 2011 that it occurred. And I think it was a directed energy weapon attack or some sort of mind weapon. I believe our facility was doing offensive work, and I believe that she was suffering symptoms of people firing back at us, basically.
So that's actually not necessarily that far fetched of an idea in reference to, compared to in Cuba there, those energy attacks that were going on the embassies and stuff like that, and that those sort of things would quite possibly be amplified down in the pole with the energies there. So yeah, and especially if, you're saying, it's a covert base, maybe not necessarily the specific building that you're in or something, but something in that area, that another power of that sort of
the antenna
technology in games would then retaliate.
the antenna array, the phased array transmitter officially, was kilometers in dimension, like in 3 dimensions, kilometer by 2 miles high. Thing's huge.
That's an insane amount of energy that when radiation would even be coming off of that.
Right. So even there's an issue with us being in proximity to this device that we were manipulating. So there's issues to be asked about that first and foremost. How does it impact the person in proximity? I don't have the answers. I know it negatively impacted members of my crew. We've been in contact. This is part of why I disclose, is because I know what happened to my crew. We now also know that Havana-like syndromes were present for our crew. They just didn't have terms for it then. We've been trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
I know that the technology is there.
2011, and then Savannah syndrome started coming out in 2016 or 2018 or something like that. So at least 5 years after.
And they were discussing how it was DoD personnel and associated like foreign agent type things, and South Pole Station and the United States Antarctic Program in its entirety, I think would fit that bill, especially with the consideration that our seasons, 2010, 2011, when I was there, was when we went from construction to operations and maintenance on the ice cube neutrino detector, which is also the phased array transmitter. So it was literally the season that they were firing up the gun, when they were dialing it in. So I think in the process of us dialing it in and discharging, that there were other entities that were basically returning fire, that it was just game on. Like, that's what this stuff is for.
And as always, and civilians just left in the crossfire.
Yeah, civilians that were hired by Raytheon.
So were you actually, who was your contractor, if you don't mind? And also, can you pull up a picture maybe as reference for the viewers of the antenna array down there, or some of them? And sorry, Eric, I just need 3 minutes if you don't mind filling
No worries.
I'll be right back.
It's fascinating.
What was the first question?
A picture of
I thought you asked something before that. I don't know if I have anything handy, but I thought you asked something before that.
I did. Now I'm trying to think.
You did ask something before that. Dang it. I could probably find something, but I'm not that expeditious on getting it over to that screen for you. Let's see here.
How bad did it get for you guys out there? Like, as far as what could be some type of Havana syndrome type effects?
Well, to the point that our winter site manager was calling for a medical evac. That literally speaks volumes. I'll clarify for folks that don't realize this. This was the head of the station. This was the winter site manager, and of anybody in that facility that knows there is no chance of a medical evac, it's her. She's supposed to be the one that's calming anyone else down if they feel that they can get an evac. Every one of us signed the contract stating clearly that this is a one-way ticket. If anything goes wrong before standard operations, you're on your own. You got to figure it out. Everyone knew this. They were very clear about it. And that's just even if they wanted to. There was no desire. Then we're getting into the reality of the logistics. We had 2 airdrops when I was in Antarctica. And that in and of itself was a logistical nightmare, and a large fortune had to be paid out just so that we could have one of our crew members get some medication that was going to be life-saving. So that was the extent of what we already knew was our lifeline in logistics. Nobody had any expectation of anything greater than that. And that had already been pushed to its limits for our crew. So in a certain aspect, as much as I don't care for Raytheon as a corporation, the United States Antarctic program did not leave us high and dry when things would get squirrely at the pole. Well, even with that being said, this winter site manager knew all of that and was apparently, I would just simply say, injured enough that she was scared enough for her own life that she was doing what she thought was in her best interest at the moment. And she was being unreasonable by asking for unreasonable things. But I get it. You know, she's a hurt animal at that point, would be my perspective. And I would, in hindsight now, I don't think she had a stroke in the slightest. I think she was just trying to identify what her symptoms were to something. And we now see this list is very similar to was the Havana syndrome symptoms. And it's just unfortunate that I'll speak publicly on her account because she's someone who went public on her experiences. And I will just state that I've spoken to other members of the crew who have had other similar symptom lists to Havana syndrome, myself included. So we're just trying to figure out what's going on down there because we know the technology exists, we've experienced it firsthand, and we know it's being used on everybody else. We're just the first ones hit. That's all. First ones to become aware. We're not the only ones. We're not special. This stuff's being used on everybody. We need to all collectively start understanding the technology and the potentials. This is not a single item. These are multifaceted weapons. They do a multitude of things. People need to get over this idea of like a rifle or a pistol, like this one shot, one kill. You have to be near someone to hurt someone. You have to be able to see your enemy to have an enemy. This is the whole modern battlefield has changed. Nobody has any idea that we are currently in the throes of war. They don't know they have an enemy because the enemy hasn't presented itself. Very convenient for them. So therefore, nobody has any idea where the front line is.
That is very well said right now, and especially with the misdirection in the media, and that even the Pope is saying essentially the world has entered a stage of World War III. Yet they don't want you looking at it, and most likely the enemy is one from at home that is, misdirecting and misallocating and misusing their power, the resources, and trying to incite further conflicts across this realm. I remember my question now. It was, who was your contractor down there? And
that's right.
Two parts, essentially, whereabouts, where the base you were located, and did you see or hear any when it came to actual expeditions around the South Pole itself? Like apparently there's a no-fly zone over the actual pole or something like that, and I guess maybe just your opinion on, for instance, Linda Moulton Howe's stories of right at the pole there being these antediluvian pyramids and excavation sites. Do you get any sort of wind or feeling like that, or not? Just something you can't speculate on?
I worked for Raytheon Polar Services, which was a subsidiary of Raytheon. They're now defunct since they no longer have the contract. Now Lockheed Martin has the contract. That was the first part. The rest was
peculiar stories, or if it seemed like you weren't allowed or nobody's allowed around the South Pole itself, or if there's any sort of hidden suppressed archaeology digs or activities and stuff around there from what you sensed or heard.
Well, we were tasked with blowing up the old pole in my summer season 2010, and they didn't want anybody going in there anymore. So that hits the nail right on the head. So the the facility that was built in 1957 had been pretty much like taken over by the ice, but there was like you could still get down in there, and they didn't want people going down in there, so they blew it up.
Really?
And
So just you'd think at a location that is so isolated and essentially like human resource scarce, if something went wrong, that they would want a backup sort of like shelter, buildings, whatever resources would be there. But you're saying that in fact you were actually tasked with doing the exact opposite and destroying the former structures that were there.
that's correct.
Wow. See, like that just does not make logical sense from the official storyline point of view.
I don't buy that story as presented. That's
Do you want to give us a few reasons as to like why, like your personal feelings and your suspicions, I guess, of it?
I think there's absolutely something still down there that they don't want people figuring out how to get to, and they had to make it more complex. I think there's still some way of accessing something over there. I believe that, there's a lot to be said for peculiar things going on at South Pole that I can't prove. But boy, was there a lot of weird stuff going on around me. Like one of the weirdest things that, in the grand scheme of all kooky, crazy, blah, 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 let's just go right for it. Like the possibility of the South Pole Station being like an intergalactic spaceport actually kind of makes sense, because with all the extreme cold weather gear on, everyone's covered head to toe, and it makes total sense there.
So that's actually also a
Everybody's walking around weird because of the clothing and the ice. So in a way, it actually, like in hindsight, you're like,
It would be very easy to misidentify people or non-people.
Cover them up. Yeah, cover them up, and yeah, just
Because like there's these stories, like both like from starting with Operation High Jump after World War II, Admiral Byrd's stories, the supposed diary of his supposed travels into inner Earth and whatnot, and then being locked in a kooky institute afterwards, never being able to tell his story officially. And then the fact that we had like John Kerry and Buzz Aldrin and all the rest of these people get rushed down there. Were you around during those times, or do you have any suspicions on that aspect of it?
I was there before they were, actually. I was there before Buzz Aldrin.
Nice.
Yeah, and they actually had to evac him too, so I got that going for me as well. But I think it's extremely weird that the leaders of the world go down there. I really do. I think that is beyond extreme.
Like,
these are elite people that are put in cushy ivory towers their whole life.
Exactly. So like,
this is a real
elaborate on this
environment.
A little bit more. So like from your personal experience working down there, it's harsh environments, and it's like you wouldn't see a rational reason for these people that are pampered, living the high life, cushy stuff, to all of a sudden have this desire or purpose to go down there from what the official reason is.
Right. The logistics lines are stretched to non-existent in Antarctica, especially going to South Pole Station, which is where I was at. You asked that earlier. I was at the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station, the actual South Pole. So there's nothing, right? If you're flying there, you're going over the Transantarctic Mountains, your plane breaks and you go down. Guess what? That's it. You're over. You're done. It doesn't matter if you're John Kerry. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So that's why I say it's wild that these people are going to this place, because they don't normally take on this level of risk or liability. They're too insulated and protected in so many facets of their life that this, to me, seems like someone's getting punished.
Right? Exactly. Like it's like that's not something that would be like that you could brag about, or that like you would want to do, or that would seem that would have any rational importance if all that's down there is just a continent of a giant iceberg. Like it's
I follow that. I can't
harsh. Like
find.
it's easy to die. There's easy to accidents. So many things could go wrong. Like why would they be taking the risk of it?
There's no practical point in them being there. That's what I don't see in the slightest. Because like me, I can say, all right, I'm there to fix anything that breaks. There's a reason for me to be there. Oh, they're paying me to do it. Okay, there's reason for me to be there. But there's no reason to pay for him. Whatever he does, they don't need to pay him to do it there.
Right? Like
Or do they? Which would be really weird.
John Kerry, like diplomat. Well, like that brings up, why would one of the highest diplomats at that time, it was right during the election too, why would a diplomat be sent to a place that supposedly has nothing unless it was of the highest importance? Like,
and I'll add to this conversation then that we have John Warner III, who was previously the Secretary of Defense, passed away within the last year. Prior to him passing away, he stated to his son that the United States Submarine Service was actively involved with secret facilities underneath the ice in Antarctica, that there were steam boring tunnels and the such, and that this facility, or these facilities, I should say, were used for space operations, what he was quoted as saying. So there's definitively stuff going on in outer space. I'm not even gonna begin to debate with folks whether or not they think there's like a massive amount of life in space. To me, that's a given. Just because we don't see it, I mean, come on, cut it out. As far as I'm concerned,
too. And you've pretty much confirmed all of my suspicions from like my own research and intuition into the South Pole. And especially, have you ever heard of Nassim Haramein and his Resonance Foundation? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. A lot.
Exactly. I love Nassim and his work. And through his Schwarzschild proton paper and thesis, astrophysics, he essentially explains and believes that within each atom, but also within each planet and everything, there's a black hole within itself, and there's a portal essentially at the poles. And from other stuff, it's like if you spin a cylinder, a ball of water with just a little bit of air in it, if you rotate it really fast, the air, the bubble actually goes to the very center of the sphere and is hollow. So it adds more to the fact that there's this possibility of either there being like a space-time sort of vortice at these poles, or whether these legends, myths of a hollow earth or something like that. It's that there's some sort of portal access, off-world or in-world sort of situation out of Antarctica.
I've read a bunch of stuff that has said that when NASA was trying to figure out how to get to the moon, that they were realizing that their gravity calculations were wrong. They were trying to do their stuff, and everything wasn't working right. And they're like, what the hell's going on? It was like, hey, you know what? We don't really understand gravity, apparently, is what they were learning. We think we do, but look what happens. We keep screwing it up. So then they just realized that what we can do, though, is we can do a workaround. We're gonna enter. Apparently, if we enter the moon's magnetosphere, gravity, whatever you want to call it, from the southern pole, our stuff works well enough. And it was a little detail that I noticed in all these other conversations about everything to do with the lunar project that just stuck out to me. I was like, they were having trouble calculating gravity and South Pole, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I wonder if this works like on all planets. Like maybe it is just easier to enter and exit the magnetosphere of a spinning sphere from the southern pole.
You're bang onto it. And I believe it was an American NASA scientist that was like maybe it was late 50s, or it could have been 60s or early 70s, that came out with this big theory of studying. And yeah, he was like, I think it was like through the UN maybe that NASA did this original 5 or 10 year study down in Antarctica, and then it was this findings, and then it was like it came out, I think, either due to sunset clause or it was released by the Russians after the fall of the Soviet Union, one or the other. But I remember seeing it, and it talked about a lot in the UFO documentaries of the late 90s, early 2000s, that there was this some sort of energy vortex out of the South Pole, and that NASA had been studying it to utilize to escape the gravity velocity of the Earth or something like that out of there. So just more supporting evidence to things that I've heard over the years.
Yeah, and they're definitely studying the magnetosphere down there. I mean, that's something they're paying attention to, and they were, you know, checking stats on it daily. That was part of the science that they
been
shipped.
to the actual the actual South Pole itself.
Yep.
And that's so cool.
Yeah.
And then you said that they were covering up the former like infrastructure, dig down, access to below.
Correct.
And
The original
one down there.
The original pole that was constructed in 1957 from the first Winter Over crew, which my crew, we actually got to have a conference call with them, which was also pretty amazing. Yeah, because we got to, I don't know, it was the weirdest thing. We got to have a chat with them, I guess, because we were going to blow up their facility. It was like kind of weird. Like we had a conference room at the South Pole, and they gathered our crew in, and they brought us on with what they said were the survivors of the original facility. So now, even in hindsight, that was a weird conversation that we had. Like,
and so were these survivors, were they like they're actually at the South Pole, or like was it video conference sort of thing?
It was a conference phone call. Wasn't even video. Yeah, there was not a lot of.
Oh my God! Did they have these poor quote unquote survivors trapped down there the whole time? Like,
no. But yeah, it was just a peculiar thing now in hindsight as well, that we even had that opportunity and that they even cared to make that happen.
Right? Like that is rather strange.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you mind maybe helping us visualize the sort of infrastructure that this first base was that you had to blow up, and then also what they have down there right now? Like, is it just like a few tents, or like are they actually, was there evidence of like boring into the ice or the rock, and like tunnel systems? Like how much sort of machinery, buildings, people, like leftover infrastructure as well as new infrastructure?
There was the original stuff was very rudimentary. It was almost like taking connexes or mill vans and just like storage containers and stacking them and arranging them in a way to build like a man camp in a way. There was an exceptionally long tunnel coming out of one side of that facility that went into the ice that I do not know why or where it went, that I'm still looking into.
That's again fascinating. And yeah, like that was what was just going through my mind. Was there a tunnel? Because like you can have these like boxcar like little situations, but it's just a cover for a tunnel down into a much bigger complex, possibly. Right. And you're saying,
and I have maps of this stuff.
Possibility of that there from what you personally saw.
And I have maps of this stuff. I have documentation. The things that I'm talking about, I'm proving. Right. This isn't me speculating. I mean, I put it that I do have speculations. Don't get me wrong. But there are times I'm speculating. There's times I'm like, hey, listen, this is a rock solid fact. Check it out. Boom. Here's a map. Here's a photograph. Here's whatever. But this whole, like you had even mentioned Linda Moulton Howe before, and you're like, well, what is your opinion on her and what she says about what's going on? Honestly, I think at this stage of the game, she's now a joke. It's starting to sound to me like other folks from the program that I was in, are messing with her.
Right.
They're having fun. There's people that do know some stuff.
Info, programs going out there, right? So it's like you're verifying that you've actually been down there, and it's like clearly if you were at the South Pole itself. It's like you would have known or seen something to
Right.
indicate an active giant dig below, but you
Hmm.
have yourself seen a tunnel to something that could
Hmm.
well be that there is definitely something down there, but just the info that she is being fed is most likely disinfo
Hmm.
to then take away the credibility of whatever is
Yes,
actually there.
exactly. Yep, correct. That's exactly what's going on, is that folks like her are gatekeepers. They might have been doing stuff good in the past. I'm not going to knock an entire person's career overnight. I'm not saying that everything's garbage. I'm just saying where this person's position right now is not practically helping the community.
And that she might not even be aware of it, right? She could
She may not.
she
She's
could be
she's
getting played and like
she's getting played is how I'm trying to look at it. I'm trying to
yeah.
play the nice guy. I think she's getting played. There are some really nutty folks in the Antarctic program, and it seems like some of the stuff that I'm seeing in the community might be that like it just got on the radar of the programs, and they don't care if these people aren't into the SSP and blah blah. It could just be fun, just like other trolls exist in other ways. What if there's folks that are from the Antarctic program that just want to mess with Linda Moulton Howe? How is she going to know better? What if anyone from the military, right? If anybody from the military, right, even like just say a disinformationist, right? Let's say someone from the government actually wants to slow my roll. So what? Somebody shows up with a DD-214 and says, I was a Navy SEAL, so therefore I'm credible. So any story that I tell you must be true.
Exactly. And I thank you for being honest with this because it's what needs to come out. And it's the, I kind of suspected that, and also how much it's like it seems that they've directed this disinfo at her and worked at it with her and like just built it up into this thing because it's like there are these real pyramids down there. Like there's on Google, you can see it. Like there's pictures of them and stuff like that.
I possess a photograph of a pyramid in Antarctica.
Can you show it?
I've shown it before on the internet. It looks terrible. It doesn't present well, and everybody goes, "That's not a pyramid." Yeah, because it doesn't. It wasn't meant to be presented this way.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We've all seen the pictures down there, and you're saying you yourself have experienced pyramids down there.
I have this photograph in my possession. I have taken this photograph with me to 2 events, 2 conferences. I've shown it to people like Brad Olson, an expert researcher in Antarctica. I've shown it to Laura Eisenhower, also an expert in the topics of the things that we're discussing. Both of them have seen it. Both of them have said, very awesome, good for you. Like, no one's arguing that this exists. It's just I'm trying to get this information out. I'm not saying there aren't UFOs. I'm not saying there aren't pyramids. I'm not saying there's not all this stuff. I'm just saying let's just have a conversation with people really disclosing it, not the ones that have cool stories.
Yeah, or that are being misled.
Dude, I gotta jump in here real quick, man. I gotta jump in. It's important, man. It's important. Okay. I got abducted by space aliens, and I saw 200 of them. I counted, and they all had 6-packs, and they told me all about their lives and what they did, and they told me about how long they were pregnant for.
Almost palpable. Like I can see a direct amount of how much energy that I put out towards disclosure to that there's this immediate response of BS that comes back. It's so programmed in. And so it's like the more you try, the more it comes. And you are certainly way ahead of the curve on trying. So you must have shit getting slung at you like I've never seen.
Well, and it's okay. I mean, I'm used to it.
I got you.
It's made me.
But you know it. That's all I'm saying is it exists.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
The best BS detector out there from experience is what it is.
What?
You just had to walk through it for so long.
Well, here's the thing, man. When I started this 7 years ago on my journey, right? And I've always had a fascination with extraterrestrials because of what I saw when I was just a toddler. And I've said this story many times. And so I've always thought that there's extraterrestrials. And then the more I've interviewed people, especially when I was doing interviews back at the beginning, and I go back and I listen to them, some of these stories, you just have to like ask real questions. Like, and here's the thing, I've interviewed a lot of people that are totally legit too. Like so legit. So,
right.
I just, there's been those people that I've interviewed throughout the years that are spreading this disinformation, and they're getting their own shows on networks, and they're talking about how they went to Mars and came back and they were a fighter pilot in Mars. And it's like, oh, well, what'd you do out there? You're out there for 25 years. Can you tell me?
And you don't have one picture from 25 years. That, like, right? It's like,
well, I mean, not only that, but they can't even really, like, let's take that, put that to the side. Let's put the physical evidence to the side. If you're good at reading people, like, you can tell, unless somebody's like the best liar in the world, you're going to be able to pick up little subtle cues, right? Tonality, body language, eye movements, and stuff like that. And then when it just compounds and compounds and compounds, you don't need to, that's even more. But if you get somebody that's literally been there and done that, they're going to give you a testimony that's going to blow your mind, right? They're going to convince you, because
you're going to read it through the body language as well as the words, right? And it's like you see the story through the person and the facial expressions and like the integrity of it. And it's so easy at this point to see those that are, well, I guess it's harder to see some trolls that are so passionate about their disinfo because it is their cause and their goal. But then it's like, there's the others that it's just like, that didn't happen.
Well, you've got those that want fame and think that's their moment of fame. You've got those that just like to stir the pot. You have those that are paid disinformation. And then you have people that are crazy. And then you have people that are just telling stories. I mean, there's a wide group of these people that tell this stuff. And, in all reality, I would say probably the majority of the stories are testimonies and legit. If you take everybody, like if you talk to people behind the scenes, and they'll tell you stuff that they're not going to talk about on TV or, on the internet, unless you can get them to do so. There's so many people that I have done that with, and they're legit. And there's so many people out there that talk about it and have written about it, and they're legit. But then you get those people out there that just make up stories. And so it is what it is. It's like everything else. I guess we just got to filter through it, right? It keeps us sharp.
It requires us to have discernment. Like, that's never changed. You're right, Rex. So I think the problem in the equation is that reality has always been this way. We've always had charlatans and snake oil salesmen. That always existed. But what the society needs now is discernment again. Somehow we've had discernment programmed out of us.
And common sense.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. To think that the average person nowadays will pretty much admit that they're like, you know what? I'd rather watch a TV show that is more sensational and of high production value than it is accurate.
Yeah, that's a really good point on the discernment, and that it's like the control mechanisms of the media have specifically targeted humanity's ability for this discernment, because the matrix of the system, the people caught in that cog, it's so close to breaking down that they have to live in this cognitive dissonance that as soon as their discernment were to come back, that whole system, the whole matrix is going to crumble for them. And thus why things are so polarized now between those who get it, those who don't, and vice versa with it.
Yeah. A lot of everything nowadays is just for the express purpose of manufactured confusion. It's information overload and conflict galore.
Oh, you said this, well, I have a link that says the opposite of that. Oh, and I have 12 links now. And a meme, I have 12 memes that say you're an idiot to boot.
It's like we don't even have reasonable conversations anymore about stuff. Everybody's like going to their smartphone 24/7, and they don't even realize that they sound like an idiot.
Well, and the AI is programmed to reinforce their confirmation bias in whatever their belief is by knowing what they look up and then providing them even more of it, so that it's just building that narrative within their reality.
People don't know anything anymore. It's the wildest situation. Like, they really don't. Like, has anybody else noticed that? Have you guys noticed that people don't know anything anymore? You ask somebody anything, they reach in their pocket and they start using their fingers to figure something out, because they certainly don't know anything anymore.
Drone behavior.
They won't speak with confidence to you unless they can have 6 links. Heaven forbid you question anything they said. Where's the humanity in this anymore?
Yeah.
Where is, hey, where's Honest Rex? Well, we call him Honest Rex because he's got a reputation being honest, because we know him, because we talk to him, because he's a human being, and we don't have to check his links, and we don't have to check his references, because he's a man of conviction, and we've known him. And you take a guy for his word until proven otherwise. If you meet him as a stranger, you don't ask him for links. Like, in a way, we were more cordial and understanding and human, and that's being programmed out of us, as if what this absurdity we experience today is human interaction anymore.
The human interaction is as it becomes. That's how you build communities. That's how you build lives. Dare open that door and see another person face to face, yet alone talk to them.
Yeah. We were talking about mind control before and programming, right? I would say everybody is currently already completely mind controlled and programmed to respect the master in their pocket. When that thing beeps or dings or vibrates, they will respond.
Right,
they'll do what the master says, and they're already slaves to this. They're completely enslaved already right now. You want to doubt that they're enslaved? Not only are they enslaved, they love the master. Because try to take it away.
Right? Stockholm Syndrome at its finest.
Right. Tell everyone they can't have their cell phones. Watch them tear your head off.
Yeah, it's just...
Right? Start a campaign. No more cell phones. Ban cell phones. Cell phones banned. You're a horrible person if you use a cell phone. Watch how far that program goes. Even though it's the weapon of our demise.
You will be walking that plank in no time.
Yeah.
But it's that there's no moderation either anymore, right? Like the common sense is gone, the balance is gone. It's just everything has been pushed to such extremes. And so another question I have for you out there, because of your, like, I've gotten to know you a little bit now, Eric. I think this is our fourth or maybe even fifth time talking, both publicly and behind after podcasts and stuff. But so I take you as a very genuine individual, and I'm very fascinated by your actual experiences and travels down to the South Pole. And where I am, and now you're on the other extreme up in Alaska. And so where I am in Calgary, Alberta, it's not as far as Alaska, but it's still decently far north. And this time of year, we just passed the summer solstice, and the lightest, how bright it is here, it's like the sun sets at 11 p.m., it rises at 4 a.m. What is it like, almost 24-hour for you up in Alaska right now? And
I think we're like 20-ish.
20-ish? Okay. Yeah, because it's a little bit further away from the North Pole. And then second part question is, when you were at the South Pole specifically, how long were you at the pole itself for? And did you experience either the 24-hour darkness or lightness, or were you around for those times?
I spent 366 days on Antarctica, on the ice. I spent about 12 hours in McMurdo when I was heading south to go to South Pole. And then I spent the entire other 365 days at South Pole. And then when I left Pole and got back to McMurdo again, I was out of there in 12 hours again. So the vast majority of my time on there was South Pole. One full year.
At that pole.
As we say there, I spent one day at the South Pole from a South Pole perspective.
It's
awesome. Celestial. It was one day. It took 365 days for the sun to do there what it does at your house in a day, 24 hours. And yes, I experienced 24 hours of sunlight. I experienced 24 hours of darkness. They were very extended periods of time.